Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Chris Edward, and in this 10-minute video I'm going to give you everything you need to know how to set up a private trust. Now this is one of the most anticipated videos that I've made because the amount of comments asking me about trusts is unreal. Now I can tell you this, when you're opting out of the system, you don't need to register your trust. A lot of people online saying, well, your trust is not legitimate if it isn't registered. The purpose of setting up a private trust is that it isn't registered because you want to keep the power in the trust. You don't want to give up your rights by registering it. So, step one, find someone you trust. A friend, a partner, a loved one, a business associate, your children, your wife, your husband. You have to trust them because you're going into a trust with them. That's step one. Now, there's lots of opinions to how you can set up a trust deed. Grab a pen and piece of paper and write your own. Go online and look at templates if you want, so you can have a general idea. But you're setting out a contract, a private contract between you and the people you trust. You're going to set out who is the settlor, who is putting things into the trust. Who is the trustee who is managing the trust? And who is the beneficiary who is benefiting from the things in the trust? The bank accounts, the property, the land, whatever, the houses, the cars, whatever you want to put in the trust. But we'll get into that in a moment. So you set out a trust document, which is a lawful document between you and another person or a group of people. You don't need to ask permission to do this. This can be a completely private thing that you do, and you write down your intentions. You can write the principles of the trust. You can write your intentions of the trust. You can write out an ethos of the trust, what you stand for, what you're willing, could be a charitable donation that you could be setting up. But the trust is important. Set out in the document. Sign the trust. Sign it with your signature, your sign of nature. You're putting your own nature down on paper, and this is why it's so important that signatures are so important. So you found somebody that you trust, and you've written your trust document, declaration of trust. So now you're in a trust. You can write this on a napkin if you want. Now, part of your trust is that it's private, which means you don't need to tell anyone. You don't need to discuss it. You also don't need to prove it. The authorities will have you try and prove this, and you can simply say, I don't need to prove anything. I'm simply telling you I'm in a trust. The end. That's it. They have to listen to you, you see. This is how we gain our power back and our sovereignty. So once you set up a trust, and you know who the beneficiaries, the settlor and the trustee are, go and get a PO box or an address that works for you. You can use your home address if you prefer, but I use a PO box in London, and set up a separate email address and a separate phone number if you would like, directed to the trustees of the trust. Now, go and print out some non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, confidential agreements. Sit down and fill them in. Now, this binds an absolute confidentiality clause in the trust, which means nothing that is in the trust, around the trust, or anything is discussed, and you're bound by a lawful contract with the trust, with the trustees. Do not break this trust. Do not say that you're going to do it and then talk about it with other people. This is private. It's a private contract between you and the trustees and the settlor and the beneficiaries. Now, what this is once you've signed the non-disclosure agreement with a private trust, you are basically handing all of your power of attorney over to the trustees, whoever you have set out to be the trustees. Now, once you've done this, and I always say to people, you have to live and breathe the trust. Everything goes through the trust. Now, in response, This is how I handle it. I'm happy paying utility bills. I don't mind paying for gas, water, heating, electric, stuff like that. That's fine because I'm actually receiving a product. A lot of people are trying to get out of those things, and that's not my cup of tea. The reason I'm saying this is because you still have to maintain a household. This isn't suddenly you're in a trust and now you're pushing everyone away. Oh, I'm in a trust, I don't need to pay for anything. That's not how this works. You still have to be a part of our society. What I'm saying is, if something unlawful, like a bailiff, is unlawful, it may be legally okay what they're doing, but it's still unlawful what they're doing. So, what the thing that we have to do is get cover letters and templates set up so that when somebody of an unlawful nature, or you feel is unjust, is contacting you for money, I think the council tax is unjust and unlawful, therefore I don't pay it. That's just my preference, just like I don't pay income tax. But I am the beneficiary of the trust that I'm in. So I am the beneficiary of the trust. Now I'm telling you this information for educational purposes. I'm not disclosing any of the private matters within the trust. So if any of the trustees are watching this, I'm being very careful about what I'm saying. So anyone contacts me unlawfully for money, I simply let them know. Thank you so much for your correspondence. I've now given all my power of attorney over to the trustees of my trust. Name the trust, but I can't tell you. Please feel free to contact them in regards to this alleged debt, and they'll be happily pay you if there's been a breach of a contract or I've defaulted on an agreement or something like that. Thank you so much. I've also signed a non-disclosure agreement to say that I cannot discuss any financial, public or private matters with anybody. So please contact the Board of Trustees. Thank you so much. And you offset your own burden to the Board of Trustees, and the trustees will answer that person. Now, the reason this is so important is because when we send that letter, they have to make a decision. They make a decision saying, well, do we contact the Board of Trustees and see what they have to say about this? Or do we keep contacting this individual? Now, if you've made it clear that you've signed a non-disclosure agreement, if they contact you again, they're in breach of contract law because they're trying to coerce you into talking when you've told them that you can't. This is why the non-disclosure agreement is so important. When you've signed an NDA, you don't talk. You're unable to talk. You're bound by law not to talk. And they have to go to the Board of Trustees. They have to, by law. So they have an option. Do they leave you alone? Do they go to the Board of Trustees? Or do they break the law themselves by contacting you again? Now, if they do contact you again, be sure to remind them that you're in an NDA with a private trust and that you can't discuss anything. And any further correspondence from them is coercion into breaking a contract. They are trying to get you to break the law. So you've got that on them. And then when they contact the trustees, it's coming up to 10 minutes, when they contact the trustees under trust law jurisdiction can ask questions. They have power of attorney, which means please send us any contracts or agreements or any terms and conditions that have been breached so that we can pay you. We'll happily pay you. The trustees want to pay. They want to offer remedy. They're not against the bailiffs. They're like, hey, we'll pay you money, whatever you want. Our beneficiary owes you money, no problem at all. Send us the contracts, the agreements, the terms and conditions of that debt, because under the Bills of Exchange, 1882, in order for there to be a debt, there must be a contract. All of these things, there has to be an agreement, there has to be a meeting of the minds, there has to be a signed wet ink signature on a contract for the debt to exist. You go through that method, and this company hasn't got a leg to stand on. Truly, this is the power of the trust. So find somebody you trust, write your trust declaration of trust, your trust ad, who you want as a beneficiary, get a settlor, a trustee. You can be multiple people within your own trust. You don't have to just be one of them. You can be all of them or some of them. And get your template letters sorted out. And I will do another video on template letters if it helps you. But we're coming up to 10 minutes. And that's how you don't have to justify your trust. You don't have to prove it. Just you saying, I'm in a trust, is the end of it. You don't need to authorize your trust, license your trust, register your trust. It's private. It's between you and the people you trust. And that's the end of it. And that's how you build a trust. Sending you lots of love. Hope you're well.